There is a motion at the desk. The clerk will report the motion.
Pursuant to Article 4, Section 19 of the Constitution of the State of Minnesota, Hillstrom moves that the rule therein be suspended and an urgency be declared, and that the rules of the House be so far suspended so that House File Number 2933 be given its second and third readings and be placed upon its final passage.
Recognize the member from Hennepin, Representative Hillstrom, to explain the motion.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker and members. Members, this is to place the AFSCME and MAPE contracts before this body for immediate consideration. Members, back in October, the Subcommittee on Employee Relations heard the AFSCME and MAPE contracts. That is 79% of public employees, including those who take care of our veterans, folks who work in our prisons, folks who plow our streets. Members, the Subcommittee on Employee Relations rejected those contracts, but then later approved 4 additional contracts by failing to meet, which had the exact same terms. Members, I believe that it's appropriate that before this body votes on each member's raise, that we actually approve the contracts that were fairly negotiated with the administration and pass the contracts for the state employees. Members, they are asking to be treated fairly. These were fairly negotiated contracts. They want to be treated with respect. It is only respectful to approve their 2% raise and 2.25% raise when the legislature is preparing to vote on their own 45% pay increase. So, Mr. Speaker, I would ask that the urgency be declared and that prior to taking up the legislative pay raises, that we actually approve the labor contracts. And I would ask for a roll call, Mr. Speaker.
Roll call has been requested. I'm sorry, I'm a little out of practice. Seeing 15 hands, there will be a roll call, sorry. Discussion on the motion. The member from Wabasha, Representative Drazkowski.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, members, I encourage a yes vote on Representative Hillstrom's motion. Members, we clearly and completely discussed this issue in the Subcommittee on Employee Relations. I look forward to a very robust discussion on the floor here today, and I think it's a chance for us to really get into the details of why we didn't approve those proposals coming forward as the unions negotiated with the administration and came forward with a proposal that many of us believed is out of step with what is happening in the private sector. So, Mr. Speaker, I look forward to a very robust and complete discussion of the issue. And members, I encourage you to vote yes on Representative Hillstrom's motion.
The member from Ramsey, Representative Lilly. Discussion on the motion.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. And members, I rise in support of Representative Hillstrom's motion. Thank you, Representative Drazkowski. That was most unexpected this morning, and we all here, very many of us, appreciate our workers, and it was fairly negotiated, the contracts. And in history, these things weren't political, so I'm glad that it sounds like we might have some movement here. These are vital team members, and appreciate your support on this. Just one final comment, just how important our team is. Take a look at your phone and the weather, or turn on WCCO and hear the weather, and think about these snowplow drivers or something that are going to be out there over the weekend. And appreciate the support on the Hillstrom motion.
Any further discussion on the motion to suspend the rules? The member from Wright, Representative O'Neill.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker and members, and I want to echo Representative Drazkowski, and I would encourage everyone to vote to suspend the rules. I would love to have this conversation and have a full and clear conversation as to what actually transpired in the SCR. So I would encourage you to suspend the rules today so that we can have that conversation. Thank you.
Any further discussion on the motion to suspend the rules? Seeing no further discussion, the clerk will take the roll on the motion. The clerk will close the roll. Flanagan votes aye. There being 128 ayes and 0 nays, the motion prevails. The clerk will give the bill its second reading.
Second reading, House File Number 2933.
Second reading. Recognize the member from Hennepin, Representative Hillstrom, to introduce the bill.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker and members. Members, House File 2933 is simply 2 labor contracts. These were heard in the Subcommittee on Employee Relations. Members, there was a negotiation that took place between the agencies and their labor unions, and these contracts were agreed to. It is a 2.25% raise in the first year and a 2% raise in the second. Members, they actually save money on the negotiations with the insurance provisions. And so all of the money that this legislature sent to each of the agencies have said that they would be able to deal with those costs within their budget. So members, the savings that was negotiated in healthcare actually goes a long way to help pay for these raises. Members, unless we pass these contracts, we do not get the health care savings that was negotiated in these contracts, which is why it has been very, very important. After these contracts were rejected, 4 additional contracts were sent to the Subcommittee on Employee Relations. The subcommittee failed to meet, and so therefore those contracts went into effect. They had the same terms as the contracts that were rejected. Members, this is approximately 79% of your public employees are found under these 2 contracts, approximately 79%. That includes your veterans home workers, that includes your snowplow drivers, that includes all of the people that provide the services to Minnesotans that make Minnesota great. Members, I think it's appropriate that before we vote on our own pay raises, that we vote to approve these pay raises. So members, I would encourage you to vote yes, and I would stand for any questions that any members might have about the content of these contracts.
The member from Wright, Representative O'Neill.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Thank you, Representative Hillstrom, for bringing these contracts forward. I would have loved to have been able to ratify these contracts in the SCR, but we have a little issue with the SCR. We have 30 days to meet, and sometimes that's not enough time for the department to get information to us, because we have a fiduciary duty in the SCR, and it's a very serious one that I take very seriously, to make sure that all of the contracts, when put together, actually fit within the budget parameters that we as a legislature passed. Because we can't pass something that then causes more cost and then they have to come back and ask for more money, which seems to happen once in a while. And so I asked a very simple question to MMB, and I asked them, do these contracts in totality, now they were negotiating quite a few different contracts, more than the 2 that we had set aside and the 3 that ultimately got ratified. There are almost 20 state employee contracts, but I asked them, if we ratify all of them, do they fit within all of the agency budgets? We asked that question in July. I thought I'd given them enough time to come up with those answers, because we didn't meet until October, November. But what actually happened was MME did give me some information about the 2 contracts, about AFSCME Council 5 and the MAPE contract. But I did not get that information until after 4 o'clock on a Tuesday for a Thursday morning hearing. So we had to work very, very quickly to even decipher what they sent to us. And when I actually proved out the numbers, and I know there's not too many folks in here that do accounting, but I do, and Senator Benson is an accountant, a CPA. When we proved out the numbers, $29 million was just missing. It was different than what they told us the contracts would cost. So that was one discrepancy that I took issue with, and I had no idea where to put $29 million. And for anyone who thinks $29 million is not a big deal, I want to ask you, which road could you fix in your district for $29 million? I know what road I'd fix in my district. I-94 could go a long way with $29 million. So that's not chump change. It's not insignificant. And I had no idea where on the spreadsheet to put that money. So that was problem number one. Problem number two, when I asked them for, when I looked back, at what was anticipated to be spent in these two contracts in the previous biennium, so what MMB had told us these contracts would cost for ASME and MAPE, ASME Council 5 and MAPE, and then what they actually cost in the biennium that we could see the report. Well, in MAPE alone, they spent 40% more than they projected. And between the two contracts, they overspent. I want you to listen to me very carefully. MMB and the unions overspent by $142 million. Now, if you think that's insignificant, think about what road could get done with that. And I know one road that could get done with that. You could expand I-94 all the way from Rogers all the way to St. Cloud and still have money left over for $142 million that was overspent for two contracts. Thank you, Representative Tice, who would love to see it go to St. Cloud. That is not small chump change. That's not a calculation error. That's real, serious money for the state of Minnesota. $142 million they underestimated in two contracts, 2 out of about 20 contracts. That's a big problem. We have a fiduciary responsibility. And maybe people in the past hadn't taken the SCR very seriously, and I'm embarrassed that they hadn't actually looked at these numbers, because when my nonpartisan staff person said to me, well, no one's ever really looked at those numbers before, I was embarrassed. We should be embarrassed as a body that no one looked at those numbers in that way before. How could I possibly, in good conscience, ratify contracts when all I had in front of me was inaccurate numbers? $29 million did not prove out to what they told me it was going to cost. I didn't know where to put $29 million in all the different state agencies. And when they said, just trust us, it fits in the budget, I look back at the history, just one biennium back. It was short by $142 million. $142 million. So yes, we had some issues, and we have another problem in the SCR. It functions like no other committee or subcommittee in the legislature. We have a 30-day clock. If I don't meet, they automatically ratify without an affirmative vote. What committee do we have that if you don't meet, your bill passes? Wouldn't you love that? I don't even meet and my bill passes. That is how the SCR operates. So yes, we had issues. We had concerns. I had very large concerns, and anyone that knows me here knows that I'm talking about real numbers, real data, and real policy, and I don't make a bunch of stuff up. That's what really happened, members. And to say that anything else happened is just untrue. So I would love to ratify these contracts, but I believe we have an amendment. Is there an amendment at the desk? Mr. Speaker, do I have an amendment at the desk? Not yet? All right. I believe Representative Hillstrom wants to address that, and so I will. Thank you.
The member from Hennepin, Representative Hillstrom.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. And members, there was public testimony over and over again that assured us that the numbers were accurate. And I don't want to impugn the character of anyone who testified before us that they weren't. Members, the Subcommittee on Employee Relations is different than any other committee. I reached out to Representative O'Neill as the chair of the committee and as the person who served on that subcommittee the longest of anyone, and she did not return my call for over 2 weeks. And when I asked her staff person, are we even going to meet, they said, you'll get the notice when we send it out to the public. I'll get the notice when we send it out to the public. So no, this committee hasn't been operating lately like any other committee. I have always consistently tried to work bipartisanly when I can. Always. And before I do something, I usually try to give a heads up. that it's coming. This subcommittee has become dysfunctional, and this subcommittee has treated members in the minority with disrespect. And I don't say that lightly. I have never been treated in such a fashion as one of the leads on a committee. Never. So, can't answer questions I don't know exist. Happy to answer questions if anybody asks them. We were told that the legislature appropriated money to each of these agencies, and the agencies testified that they negotiated contracts within the parameters of the money that we gave them. That's the testimony. Now, you might not like a provision of the contract, but that is the role of negotiations. We allocate the money, the agencies go collectively bargain with their unions, and they bring back the contracts and they tell us it is within what we can afford. That's the job. We review the contracts, and then this body, when this body acts, the contracts either become law or they don't. At any point in time, this body can reject the contracts. But I have to tell you, these are the 79% of public employees that do the job every day. You want your snow plowed when it snows? You want to have workers that are going to do it. You want your veterans taken care of? These are the people that are going to do it. So I encourage you to approve these contracts. You hold the budget strings. If they come to you and say there isn't enough money, you decide whether you're going to give them more. The testimony is they have the money to pay for them. So let's approve them.
There is an amendment at the desk. The clerk will report the amendment.
O'Neill moves to amend House File Number 2933 as follows. Delete everything after the enacting clause and insert. The amendment is coded RA 18-011.
I recognize the member from Wright, Representative O'Neill, to introduce your amendment.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker and members. So I have a few things here.
If I can just interrupt for 1 second, I apologize. Copies are being made of this. We won't proceed until everybody has a copy of it and has had time to review that, but we'll let her go ahead and introduce it and tell you what's in it. So apologize about the delay. The member from Wright, Representative O'Neill.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. When we suspend the rules, this is what we get. Is that right, Mr. Speaker and members? So, members, I have a few policy provisions that I've added, but more importantly, the 3 contracts, not the 4, we only had 3 come through that self-ratified because we did not meet, are also in my delete all. So not only are AFSCME, Council 5, and MAPE included, but also the 3 that came through the SCR that self-ratified are also here, because I would like to see these 3 contracts, the total of 5 contracts ratified. Now, let me tell you just quickly about the additional policy provisions that I would also like to see so that this committee functions more cleanly and more alike the rest of the body as we proceed through here. So the first one is a definition of ratification. It seems that as pieces of legislation have come through this body and gone to the governor, the MMB has had confusion as to what has actually been ratified or not. So I am clarifying what ratification actually is, which means we pass it, the Senate passes it, and the governor signs it. The next piece, Representative Hillstrom talked about insurance and how we must pass these contracts because of insurance. Well, not only did nonpartisan staff recommend to me that we bifurcate the insurance provision from the contracts, but MMB also recommended to me that we bifurcate the insurance from the contracts. And so my provision would be to do just that, to bifurcate and take up the insurance provision separate from the contracts. The next provision is about the 30-day clock. And so what had happened when we had these 2 contracts, AFSCME and MAPE, we had a 30-day clock, and we were at the very, very end of that 30-day clock, and I still did not get satisfactory information from MMB. I would have liked to meet longer. I would have liked to lay them over until we actually had full numbers from them, and I did not have that option. And so this would eliminate that so that we could actually have that option and we operate more like the rest of the committees here at the House. The last provision is about voluntary contributions. And so right now, AFSCME and MAPE and all the other state employees have dues taken out, and they don't have control over to where those dues go. And sometimes those dues get spent for political purposes. And maybe they want that and maybe they don't. This would give them the option that if they did not want to spend money on a political campaign, that they would not have to. So this is a voluntary contribution to a political campaign as opposed to a forced. And those are the policy provisions, including the additional contracts that we already self-ratified that are in my amendment. Thank you, members.
Discussion on the amendment. The member from Hennepin, Representative Hillstrom.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, we're conferring right now to see if the amendment is divisible.
Members, the amendment is also available online currently as well. The member from the member from Hennepin, Representative Hortman.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Born and raised in Anoka, so you can use either Anoka or Hennepin. I have a point of parliamentary inquiry while we're waiting to see the amendment. Most of us didn't bring our computers because we did not expect to be here very long.
State your point of parliamentary inquiry.
My parliamentary inquiry is there not a state law that requires accept or reject contracts and that the legislature may not modify them?
Representative Hortman, can you repeat your question?
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and I probably could have been a little bit more precise with my question. Is there a state law, statute, or rule that prevents us from modifying the contracts?
Okay, that's a little different question that you asked, so let me confer. Representative Hortman, I can refer you to State Statute 179A22, Subdivision 4, and the second sentence of that subdivision says, the negotiated agreements and arbitration decision must be submitted to the legislature to be accepted or rejected in accordance with this section and section 3.855.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
One moment, please. Section 3.855 reads, and I am in subdivision 2B, the last half of the last sentence. It shall submit the matter to the legislature to be accepted or rejected under this section. And I want to remind you that it is not my constitutional duty to interpret state law.
Thank you, Mr.
Representative Hortman.
Mr. Speaker. Parliamentary inquiry.
State your parliamentary inquiry.
Isn't it, boy, we're all learning our legislative muscles, custom and practice for the House to always accept or reject and not accept amendments to the contracts on the House floor?
Representative Hortman, I believe that to be correct.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Then, Mr. Speaker, again, it's like getting back on a bike, but it's a little bit slower here at the legislature for us to remember. I would move that the amendment is out of order and ask that you find it out of order based on the custom and usage of the House.
Representative Hortman rises to a point of order that this amendment should be declared out of order. Advice for the Speaker on that point of order. The member from Wright, Representative O'Neill.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. And the contracts of themselves, we are not changing anything within the contract. We're not changing 2% and 2.25%. We are not changing the step increases of 3.7% per year, which if you add that up, it's over 11% increase over the biennium. We're not changing any other factors within the contracts themselves. So I would say that we are actually not changing the contract themselves, Mr. Speaker.
Any further advice? The member from Hennepin, Representative Hortman.
I think the state statute is very clear that we have an option of accept or reject. We are not a party to these contracts. They have been negotiated between two parties. And as we are not a party to the contracts, we may not change them.
The member from Wabasha, Representative Drazkowski.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Advice.
State your advice.
Mr. Speaker, it was 2 years ago that we brought through a contract proposal that carried with it in passage eventually of this body 4 or 5 different policy provisions that accompanied it. And so this body has already passed out of here successfully a full contract package with those policy provisions in. So I would encourage you to rule the point of order not well taken.
Mr. Speaker, advice?
The member from Ramsey, Representative Pinto. State your advice.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, it seems to me that the Speaker has already indicated to the body, as I think many of us know, the custom and usage of the body is to accept or reject the contracts. Under our guidelines, Mr. Speaker, in the House, custom and usage actually prevails over the Minnesota statutes, but in this case, they are consistent. The Minnesota statute says the contract is accepted or rejected. Those are the 2 options. We've always read it that way. That's the custom and usage of the House. I have not heard anything from any other member that would contradict those provisions and that approach. So, Mr. Speaker, I would urge you to find the point of order well taken.
Mr. Speaker.
The member from Hennepin, Representative Thiessen.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Just a point of history. When this has been raised on a point of order previously in 2014 and 2013, it was ruled that the point of order that Representative Hortman is making is well-founded, and that was supported on an appeal of the ruling of the Speaker. So it is not just the custom and usage in the general sense, but actually custom and usage in terms of rulings that this body has made previously. And I think our other custom and usage is to follow previous precedent with regard to this.
The member from Wabasha, Representative Drazkowski.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Further advice?
State your advice.
Mr. Speaker, we have not changed in the past, to my knowledge, the contents of the contracts as they have come through here. And Mr. Speaker, this proposal in front of you and the amendments being added to the bill do not change the contents of the contracts either. The amendment that Representative O'Neill is bringing forward is congruent in its custom and usage and respecting that same treatment in that we do not amend or change the contents of the contracts going through here. It is also congruent with the custom and usage played out last time that I mentioned 2 years ago, in which we had additional provisions as part of the bill that the contract was carried in, but again, did nothing to change, denature, add to, or subtract from the contract provisions in that particular bill. So, Mr. Speaker, this approach that Representative O'Neill is bringing forward is perfectly in line, as far as I can see, with the custom and usage of this body. And, Mr. Speaker, I would encourage you once again to find the point of order not well taken.
The member from Hennepin, Representative Pepin.
Mr. Speaker, advice?
State your advice.
Mr. Speaker, to the previous point that was made about a previous legislature when Representative Thiessen was in fact Speaker Thiessen and made the point of order, I would just remind the body that a past legislature is different than the current legislature, and a past legislature does not bind the current legislature. And I would also reiterate the point that this does not change the contracts in any way. So I would ask the body to take the point of order not well taken, and Mr. Speaker, for you to rule not well taken first.
Mr. Speaker, further advice?
Representative Considine, for what purpose do you rise?
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I guess advice.
State your advice.
Well, I finally got a copy of the amendment that Representative O'Neill put down, and it resolves all around whether there's changes. Well, there are things that are crossed off, and there are things that are underlined, and it starts right off. Delete everything after the enacting clause and insert. Those are obviously changes. So I don't know how you make the argument that it is not changed when it starts right off saying We are deleting and enacting clause and inserting stuff. I mean, I don't know how you're going to make a rule saying that we're not inserting and changing things when you are. Thank you,
The
Mr.
member
Speaker.
from Ramsey, Representative Pinto.
Mr. Speaker, further advice.
State your advice.
Just briefly, Mr. Speaker, I just want to respond to the Majority Leader's point about how past legislatures don't bind current legislatures. That's the whole point of custom and usage. It's the usage and the custom. It's what's happened in the past. There is very clear parliamentary guidance for us. This is how it works. Part of the guidance that we have, and Mr. Speaker, that you're ruling upon, is the custom and usage in the past. So it's helpful to know what happened in the past. The Speaker has already acknowledged, as a previous Speaker acknowledged, the custom and usage is to not do this. And Mr. Speaker, for that reason, I would certainly urge you to find the point of order well taken.
Upon receiving the advice of numerous members and upon reviewing the actual amendment in the underlying bill, I found the point of order not well taken. Discussion on the amendment. The member from Hennepin, Representative Hillstrom.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I've been advised that it is divisible, so I would like to divide the amendment between line 3.17 and line 3.18. So members, I would like to vote on the second half of the amendment first. That is straight up the state contracts, Mr. Speaker. And I would like a roll call vote.
Get your 10 hands, 15 hands.
Okay, Representative Hillstrom moves a division between lines 3.17 and 3.18. She has asked for a roll call. Seeing 15 hands, there will be a roll call. The clerk will report the amendment.
Hillstrom is moving to divide the O'Neill amendment. The first portion would be lines 1.12 through 3.17. The second portion of the O'Neill amendment would be lines 3.18 through 5.17. We're voting on the second portion first.
Just to make sure we've got that correct, Representative Hillstrom.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Speaker. And if I could speak to the second half.
Representative Hillstrom, the second half of that is before the body. So 3.18 to the end of the amendment is the divided portion that is now before the body. Representative Hillstrom, to that motion.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Members, these are the labor contracts. These are the ones that the Subcommittee on Employee Relations allowed to become law, or allowed to go into effect without meeting, as well as the 2 labor contracts that I had put forward. So members, in addition to the previous 79% of public employees, now you get to vote on your 911 radio operators. You get to vote on your prison guards. So I want to make it really clear to you that now public safety is also a part of these contracts, based on Representative O'Neill's amendment. These contracts specifically went into effect when the SER failed to meet. So I would encourage a yes vote, and I would ask for a roll call, Mr. Speaker. I already got a roll call.
A roll call is already in place. The member from Wabasha to the amendment.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Just to clear some things up, members, it's been discussed that the AFSCME and MAPE contracts have been ratified, and they have not. And as a matter of fact, what we have currently with them is we have interim approval, and that's what happens when the 30 days in the Subcommittee on Employee Relations lapse without the subcommittee acting on it, is they automatically get interim approval. And so the only body that can ratify contracts is this body, and that's where it happens. And members, the amendment before us does not ratify the contract. The bill will ratify the contract. So I appreciate your indulgence and look forward to further debate. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The member from Wright, Representative O'Neill.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker and members. And I want to encourage you to vote in favor of this portion of the amendment. I did finally receive back some information from MMB. It came, like I said, I asked for the information back in July, and I finally got some numbers, although they aren't complete. I asked for more, and I didn't get the full numbers so I could prove out that these numbers are accurate. But I do have information from MMB that shows, at least at a very high level, that these fit within the budget parameters. Again, I did not get the proof that I could actually prove that out like an accountant would do, which I am. So I don't have that, but I would like to approve these contracts today, all of them that we put together in this amendment, and I would encourage a yes vote.
Further discussion on the amendment. The member from Ramsey, Representative Lilly.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I rise in support of the amendment and the division of such. You know, I'm just going to backtrack. You know, this whole thing's just really sad to me. So, you know, we've got people that are really part of our team. I've heard all of you give your retirement speeches and all that stuff, and you're respectful to your staff, and I love your staff, and we love the people up here. But this is sick. You know, it is really sad. And then you get into all this, you know, a lot of us aren't attorneys. And then you get into all this procedural stuff, and we play a game for about an hour and dividing stuff. But I tell you, the citizens of Minnesota don't like that. You know, treat people, you know, how you want to be treated. And I've been on the capital investment trip and other trips around the state, and I faced some of these staff that are working these public institutions around, you know, and we're talking about kind of boring stuff about roofs. But you look at these people in the face, and they're part of our team. And we need to remember that. I work for a big company in Minnesota, and I'm just blessed to have that job, I tell you. I'm thankful for it. They treat us pretty well. And I think we need to do the same thing for our employees. I was serious about that snow plowing thing. They're going to be out there. You know, we're going to be talking about nursing homes. You know, these are tough jobs. Teaching our kids, I mean, it's just sad to me, like playing legal crap games. Get over it, people. This is Minnesota. We're better than this. Take care of our team, treat them well, hire good people. If they're not, get rid of them. It's pretty simple. Like Ulam would do with his business. Baker would do with his. If you got people that aren't stepping up doing a job, you'd find a way to train them, or you'd have some transitions. So we have good people, treat them well. I encourage you to vote yes, and just quit playing games, all of us. Maury Lanning, when he was here, you know, was a great guy. He didn't have to go through this. This is sad.
Just a reminder, members, the amendment before the body is the second half of the amendment coded RA 18-011, everything from line 3.18 and on. That's up for consideration. The member from Wabasha, Representative Drazkowski.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Members, I would like to talk about the team too. And members, I sent a handout around, and it looks at some of the numbers that have been discussed. Part of them have been discussed. And we hear the unions talking about, why didn't you vote for it was only a 2% increase. And Representative Hillstrom, you and I and other people on the committee know it's more than that. It also includes the step increases for the majority of the employees in each of the bargaining units. And members, that's what you see on this sheet here. And as we think about the team, are we only going to think about the government team, or are we going to think about the Minnesota team? Because a good share of the team is left out if we don't consider the private sector. And members, we're talking about 35,000 government employees collectively in these contracts. The increase proposal is in the neighborhood of $500 million. These are important decisions that shouldn't just be glossed over. Members, look at the numbers that have been placed in front of you, compiled by House Research. The Consumer Price Index for each of the last 5 years in 2013. Now, this could be equated and probably should be equated to what the cost of living adjustment approach is for these union negotiations. You will also see the COLAs under each of those two areas, AFSCME union contract and the MAPE union contract. Compare the two. Over the last 5 years, while the Consumer Price Index has gone up in 2013 by 1.65%, the COLA for AFSCME was 2%. The COLA for MAPE was 2%. When the cost of living increase was 1.55% across the state of Minnesota, the COLA for AFSCME was 3%, and for MAPE was 3%. And I can go on, and you can look on the sheet, and you can see each time the cost of living adjustment given to the government employees was greater than the average person in the state of Minnesota, greater than the farmers out there in our districts, greater than the beauticians working in the beauty shops, greater than the mechanics across the state fixing our cars. Those team members are very important. Greater than the bricklayers building our buildings across the state of Minnesota. Greater than the contractors in our state pounding nails. Greater than the apartment managers and owners. Greater than the people who own the cafes and the waitresses who make them go. They are important parts of our team. Greater than the manufacturing workers, greater than the miners, greater than the grocery store workers, greater than the hotel and motel staff that take care of us and our visitors when we need them. Greater than the rest of the private sector on average. That's what we have delivered in the cost of living adjustment to these 35,000 employees each of the last 5 years, greater than the private sector. Now, members, the part that gets left out is the fact that in addition to that 2% or 2.25% that was proposed in these two union contracts that we provided interim disapproval for back in October, in addition to that, they get a step increase on top of that. You can see that in the sheet. It varies from 2.75% to 3.5%. So look at the area that says individual median earnings on the sheet. Each of the last, we don't have last year, but we have the 4 years before that. In 2013, while our team members in the private sector while that average Minnesota worker was getting a 1.32% complete collective total increase on average, the AFSCME union employees that qualified for their step increases, which is over half of the employees, received a 4.75% increase. The MAPE union employees, while the waitresses were getting a 1.32% increase, received a 5.50% increase. And that plays through in true each of the last 5 years. And members, if you look at what is being proposed in these contracts that are before us, that were not provided interim approval by the Subcommittee on Employee Relations, the curve continues to go up at a rate that isn't reflected by the rest of the team. And members, that is why interim disapproval was voted against by this member, and that is what I think is being overlooked in this discussion. And members, that is the complete picture that the union bosses have not shared in their messaging. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Representative Hillstrom.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. And members, Representative Drazkowski didn't talk about the cost, the savings by healthcare. But I want you to get a context about how other states are doing. So this contract is on par with raises from other employees across the country. State government employees across the border in Wisconsin are getting a 2% raise at the direction of Scott Walker. State government employees in Georgia, Indiana, Kansas, Louisiana, Nevada, and Washington are also getting raises of at least 2%. And the average wage increase in the private sector last year was more than 3%, 3.1 this year, and next year is expected to be 3.2. So members, our contracts are 2.25 and 2. So members, I would encourage you to vote in favor of these contracts as they were negotiated.
The member from Nicollet, Representative Johnson.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker and members. I want to remind you that these contracts are about people, they're about their families, and it's about the work that these folks do. I had 4 gentlemen in my office today. I had a nice conversation. They happen to work at the St. Peter Regional Treatment Center. They both work at the Minnesota Sex Offender Program, and they work in the state Minnesota Security Hospital. And I've talked about these folks before, but for you newer members, I'm just going to share some of our conversation today that kind of illustrates the kind of things that they do. I could tell the stories about the families that worry about those folks going to work. I could talk about the support in that community for these people to earn a decent wage for the important work they do. Today we talked about a couple of things. First of all, we talked about with the gentlemen who work in the sex offender program. What's their concern? Their concern is that they're now supervising at one time alone 30 sex offenders. And they talked about the stress that puts on them. They're asking to have at least 2 people on board all the time. Sure made sense to me. I thought I kind of reflected myself. I said, boy, if I'm in that situation, I've been in that facility, and I've been in that facility during a lockdown. I thought, my goodness, I can't imagine the stress that you have. And we talked about how it just kind of tenses your body up. It kind of tenses your body up, and you come home exhausted from that day's work. And it's their work, and they go do it every day. Both of these facilities run 24/7, 365 days a year. So it's work that absolutely has to be done, and it's difficult work. One of the gentlemen that was in the group with me, we talked about a tour that I was able to take about 4 or 5 years ago. I got to go alone and really learn what goes on. This was in the security hospital, to see what was going on, see what life was like for people working there, to understand it better. Because this is complex work, and they've been teaching me over the years. I've learned a lot. Again, in that night, we observed a patient who was, the tensions were escalating. And they immediately got me into a safe, secure spot, and 5 or 6 of these folks got around and worked with this patient, patiently, and carefully worked with this person so that situation did not escalate at that time. I saw professionalism to the utmost degree of these individuals working with a patient. That patient could be from one of your districts. It's likely from one of your districts. My point being is that this is remarkably important work. This is a modest raise. It's a matter of respect for people who do the work for the state of Minnesota. I could go on and tell stories about the people I worked with at Minnesota State University. I'll tell one. The woman that worked in my office who was an AFSCME worker, who I worked with, we must have worked together for 20 plus years. I saw every time a student came into our office, it was an advising center, and a lot of students came into my office that were really struggling in college. They were struggling personally, they were hurting. And every one of those students, I mean everyone, came and were met with deep respect and deep dignity by the person who was in charge of the office where I was working, an AFSCME worker. I don't know exactly what the wages are that these folks make, but I perceive it's in like 35, 40, 45,000. It's not a big wage. It's probably less than we make here in the legislature. And yet they do remarkably hard work. We absolutely have to pass these contracts today. I ask you to do this for these people who do important work for us across the state of Minnesota and for their families. Thank you.
Seeing no further discussion, the clerk will take the roll on the second portion of the amendment.
Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker.
What are you rising for, Representative Singh?
Just a question. I was just wondering if the state electricians were on strike.
That's not appropriate. The clerk will close the roll. Representative Johnson S. votes aye. There being 111 ayes and 17 nays, the second portion of the amendment is adopted. That now puts before us, members, the first portion of the amendment coded RA 18-011. And that's everything up through line 3.17. To the author of that amendment, the member from Wright, Representative O'Neill.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker and members. I would encourage a green vote, and I'd like a roll call, please, Mr. Speaker.
Roll call has been requested. Seeing 15 hands, there will be a roll call. Further discussion on the amendment. The member from Hennepin, Representative Hillstrom.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker and members, that last vote just told us that this next vote is all about politics. 111 members of this body believe that these labor contracts are fair. In just a little while, you're going to vote to raise your own pay 45%. I think it is improper to add items to the negotiated agreements and to make public employees a political football, Mr. Speaker. So, Mr. Speaker, at this time, I would ask to withdraw House File 2933.
Representative Hillstrom, you can table the bill, you can return it to the author, or you can refer it to a committee. Representative Hillstrom.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, at this point, my first motion would be to table the bill.
Representative Hillstrom moves to table House File 2933 as amended. All those in favor of that motion signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed, no. The motion prevails.